So I'm very happy to be here after the 3 previous sessions, because I think this will build very much on top of what you have seen so far. So my name is Pedro Bandeira. I'm at Deutsche Telekom. I'm VP for product. In this, I have as my responsibility TV, besides other products that you'll see in a customer home. And I'm here to talk about the impacts of CPE. CPE is customer premise equipment. So in this case, we are talking about the set-top box, for the ones that do not know, as DT moves towards an all-streaming future. So I'll start with explaining why are we moving to an all-streaming future. This, for us, is fundamental in terms of simplicity. It doesn't make sense to continue to carry legacy from the past that actually constrains our ability to create innovation. You see that on an IP delivery approach, you see that on a cable broadcast approach. So this simplicity for us is indeed extremely important. But the main point is not this one. The main point is the set-top box. And this is what I'll try to talk a little bit about. I will start with our vision in terms of product. Where are we taking our product? So no big surprises. You have seen here some from several of the other operators. We all target the same thing, but I'll try to share why we see this specifically as a very, very difficult challenge. We do not see this as a straightforward win for us in the future. Why the CPE is still fundamental, and how it can become less fundamental in the future if we are able to take some very, very important steps as time goes by. So I will start with context. So first of all, TV is changing. It has been changing for a very long time, but I think we are still in the middle of this cycle in terms of transformation. And I would highlight the main changes that we see. So a change from a linear model to a non-linear model in terms of consumption from consumers. Also, very, very importantly, a change from provider-centric to content-centric. This is fundamental, and this is one of the things that we as operators need to be very, very much aware as we prepare our TV services for the future. And all of this is happening in a context in which direct players are going direct to consumer. So all of those brands, instead of having us in the middle to broker this billing relationship, they try to go direct to the consumers and deliver the services. So in this context, the question is, what is our role? How can we actually create value for consumers? Why should they be a customer from Deutsche Telekom and not just at the same time a customer from Netflix, a customer from Amazon, and by the way, they also can have the ZDF app, the RAD app, so they could eventually have all of that without Deutsche Telekom. So we feel that we deliver the value in 2 main areas, and this is summarized by aggregation, super aggregation, and we aggregate in content discovery, but we also aggregate in subscribe and unsubscribe. This is very, very important. We can and we should bring, and we are bringing that in several of our markets, simplicity to consumers. You have one single billing relationship. You subscribe and subscribe directly on your TV service, and you do it at any time. You have full flexibility to do so, and you also don't need to think where are the shows that you actually want to consume. They might be in Netflix, they might be in Disney, they might be in Amazon. You don't know, but we have the answer for that because we can aggregate in a content-centric way. Once again, this is extremely important. This is something that both TiVo and Sky have highlighted. And of course, as part of this, we need tools, we need powerful tools that we have seen before, from voice personalization, that carry this discovery experience. Ad insertion is one of the few potential areas. So TV by itself is, as an industry, is very much at risk. And one of the few areas in which we actually see potential in terms of growth, and we are trying to capitalize on that growth, is actually on ad insertion, that we play a middleman role in this new world in terms of ad insertion that was previously between the companies, the brands that wanted to put the ads and the broadcasters, and now with our data, with our ability to create this personalization and ad targeting for ads, and because of that, we create additional value. So, this is the summary of our strategy. So basically, we follow three principles, three customer pillars, sorry, and one underlying principle. I will start with the principle, unbreakable service with best video and audio quality. This is what the customer expects from us. At the end of the day, they are consuming video and they want the best possible video quality and audio quality at any time, and a service that doesn't break. We're seeing some, also in the previous presentation, some comments around degradation, Wi-Fi coverage, putting down quality. Customers don't understand that. The majority of customers, they just understand that they want to see a video service with quality. And it's our job to deliver on this. When we can and we should do a lot in the background to actually support this seamless experience for consumers. Now, while doing this, we still need, and we'll see more details in the next two slides, we still need to have our own device. So our set-top box, this is really the only place today in which we are fully able to deliver on our vision. What I mentioned to you before, on super aggregation, on seamless subscribe and subscribe, I can only do it on the set-top box. I cannot do it today on a third-party device. It's not that I don't want it. It's not that I'm not working on having it. It's just the reality of the present. So the set-top box is fundamental still today. Of course, our strategy very much around content aggregation and personalization in our user interface. It's actually funny. If you look at user interfaces nowadays, they all look the same. So you have some photos of our user interface that compare with, for instance, with what you saw two presentations back, very similar. And I can give you 5, 6 other examples from other operators. We are all more or less doing the same, but we still do the fine tunes based on the data, based on what is working and what is not working. This is something that for us is very important as we roll out features and we check how the customers are actually engaging with those features. And then on the right side, the snapshot, this is just a sample of the multiple players that we aggregate, for instance, in Germany. In Germany, we aggregate these players and many more. And we need to do so. We need to do so because in the same way that 20 years ago, all of the content was spread across 100, 150 channels, now all of the content is spread above for 100, 200 channels, then 20, 25, 30 big players in terms of content providers. So we need to have all of them, and we need to integrate them in a seamless way for our consumers. But like I mentioned to you, I can only do this if I have the set-top box. And what is the reason for that? What are actually the roadblocks that we have? So, first of all, we are not happy to be just an app on an interface. I don't want to be just an, I am, disclaimer, I am, but I'm not happy to continue to be in the future just an app in a smart TV. Because if I am that, and that's why I asked the question, by the way, to the previous speaker, I will also, over time, lose engagement with consumers because they will spend less time with me on my experience and more time with all of those other apps that are there available in the same user interface. So for us, it only works for the future. I could only replace the set-top box if I'm able to do the same thing that I do with the set-top box without the set-top box. This means that I need to be the app, the main app on the ecosystem. And I can have, and I will have, the other apps in the same way as I have today in my set-top box. Be the aggregator for subscribers and subscribe. Also, fundamental. We are the main touch point, the main connection for the consumer to subscribe to all of those servers. We are the middleman. We need really to take ownership of this position. And once again, it's very difficult to do it if you are just one of the apps in the ecosystem. But if you control the experience like you do it today in our set-top box, you can do that. Content-centric customer experience. We saw it with Sky. We saw it with TiVo. This is fundamental. Content is king. We all know that. It's not about the provider. The provider, yes, it's great if they are putting out the content that people want to see. So it's always about the content. And content today might be in one provider, tomorrow it might be in another provider, but it's still the same content. So it's our responsibility to actually aggregate it. Once again, if I'm just one of the apps, I will lose track of this. So we are on a journey, and it's a very long journey. And we have started this journey some time ago, but it will take a very, very long time. And I see 5 things in this journey, and we are acting on all of them. And this is my last slide, but it's the one that I will actually spend more time on. First and foremost, fundamental, aggregate, 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 and then when you're tired of aggregating, aggregate some more. Because we do need to have all the content available. It's fundamental. It's what can differentiate us from the other guys that do not have that content available. So that's an enabler. You need to have it. And then you need to fully aggregate also for subscribe and subscribe. Because one thing is to have the app. I see a lot of operators that are very happy. Hey, I have the app. It's there. Yeah. What is your value? Because over time, you'll be bypassed in terms of experience. It's not enough. So first step is to aggregate. Then start putting smartness into your aggregation. Aggregate on subscribe and subscribe. Our vision, it's a one-click experience. In the same way that you subscribe with a one-click, you should be able to unsubscribe also with a one-click. This also has implications on identity for OTT consumption, because if I'm telling you that you subscribe with a one-click, what is your ID if you go to another device to actually do that? We have an answer for that, but we are doing that. Then fully aggregate for content-centric content discovery. So this is where we can actually make a huge difference, and this is where we have the biggest technology challenges. It's all about the metadata, it's all about the tagging, it's all about how you can actually see that that content is the same content across multiple providers, that you track whatever the consumer is doing with that content, playing it today, recording it tomorrow, changing from one channel to another channel, from one content provider to another content provider. It's still the same content. And the actions that I take from discovery to play on that content should be independent of the provider that is actually delivering the content. Then, this is a tricky one. I'll try to speak in the best possible way, and please understand that there are things that we can say, things that we cannot say. But aggregate directly on the TV panel, no set-top box. This is like the holy grail. But what we need to understand is we need to do this. If you look at what's happening on the TV space, let's look at just one example without personalizing, but I think this comment should apply to multiple brands. Actually, UIs in smart TVs are becoming better and better. They're becoming really, really good. So we, as an industry, actually had a head start, but they are really catching up. The UIs are becoming really good, so that problem that some consumers had in the past, that they actually had a crappy experience with those UIs, it's becoming a thing of the past. Now, when this is happening, these guys are really becoming our competitors with regards to aggregation, because they are doing exactly the same thing that I just described that we want to do. And they are actually better positioned to do it because they are ready with the display in the customer home. Now, how do we work around this? Two possible paths. And we are trying, and we are working on both paths. So you are either successful with A, or you need to go to B. A is you are able to broker something as a deal with these TV providers in which you actually become the app in a way that it is a customer decision. So a customer buys a television, connects the television, and then we'll ask, are you a DT customer, or are you competitor B, competitor C? If you say that you're a DT customer, then you get the DT experience. You become the app. This is one path. This is the path that we would like to go, because really to do TVs is not our core business. But if we are not successful on this path, we might need to go on the other path, and that is to actually do TVs, something similar to what Sky was actually mentioning. Because that's the only way to actually to continue to be relevant in that space. Last but not least, we have not talked about other devices beyond TV, but I think this is also extremely important. What I've just shared with you regarding our vision, our importance to aggregate, if it all applies to the big screen, to the TV, why shouldn't it apply to other displays that are becoming more and more important, specifically for younger generations? Why should we constrain ourselves that the vision only applies to the big screen? Why shouldn't we try also to apply the same vision to a smartphone, to a tablet, to other types of devices? To have an app that aggregates other apps. Of course, you will not be able to be the super app on the ecosystem because Apple and Google will not allow it, but you can still have the concept of an app that is able to aggregate other apps in terms of content discovery and in terms of subscription. And that will give you full service continuity between the experience that you have on the TV and the experience that you have also in these other touch points. So this is something that it's very, very clear also in our vision. So what I've tried here to share with you today is our vision, what we believe and what we are working on. It's a very long path, but it's one that we think it's fundamental to achieve the sustainability of the TV business, because we really feel that TV is going to become more and more a challenging ecosystem unless we do this. But like the Chinese say, when there is risk, there is always opportunity. And we also see the upside of trying to do this way to actually be able to capitalize where others will not be able to do so. So thank you very much, and I believe we still have 1 minute and 20 seconds for some questions.
Yes, questions for Pedro. So I don't see a hand, so I certainly have one. It seems like simplicity is a very valuable thing that you can offer, and you can offer it in a way that most other providers can't in the space, right? TV has gotten very complicated, but there's also the problem that people also want to retain the flexibility that they're getting with IP. Is there a tension there?
I think the tension is more about it. I call it a generational tension. So we have a lot of what we call old school consumer subscribers that really enjoy their, let's call it, their lean-backed, safe, comfortable linear experience. But then you also have a new generation that is becoming more and more relevant. And by the way, that's the one that will continue to pay you money in the future, that want something else, that they want to have, let's call it, a more streaming-oriented customer experience. How do you balance both? Because you do need to have both. I think some of the things that we need to do is actually the same way that we customize the customer experience, asking the customer, what do you want to do? See movies, see sports, and you use that to personalize. You can also personalize the UI. The UI can also be dynamic. It does not need to be a static UI that you are delivering to the consumer. So if you are older and you expect a more predictable experience, you can have that, because I can shape the UI based on your usage and based on what you tell me when I have onboarded you to the service. Right. But can I just comment on last thing on simplicity? I think this is an area in which it doesn't matter how much of a good work we do, we always will have a small amount of consumer subscribers that actually take advantage of all the features that we put in the UI. Because we can never, it's very difficult to break this barrier. Actually, voice is probably the only thing that can break this barrier because of the natural language, the way that you interact, the way that you query, in the same way since you are 2 and you have learned to talk and ask for things. This is how you can actually give mass consumers access to all the features. A lot of things that we have today that they don't know it's there, and it doesn't matter how much of a good work we do in the UI. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Pedro, as always, very informative. Yes, we have one question. Please.
Oh, yeah, if I may, I'm Christian from Media Press. You showed the way uphill and the topic of identification of content, because you have this content-centric view. A question concerning your machine room, if I may. How do you do that, identification of content? Because it's complicated. Can you give just one or two keywords?
A couple, yes. I think we started some time ago with 2 things. One is let's call it the legacy things that you do with your partners in terms of metadata creation for identification. Another one that we started maybe 4 years ago on actually taking advantage of machine learning to actually try to understand. So we crawl content, and when you crawl content, both video and audio, you created the identification or sorry, someone cut. Okay. So like a fingerprint of that content that you can use to make sure that it's the same. But you need to crawl the content, but you do it offline if it is offline content. If it is online, it's a little bit more difficult because the information does not become available immediately, but sometime after you are able to create the connection. Thank you.
Very good. Pedro, thank you so much.